Today I'm going to be talking about the compounding effect of silence. Okay, the compounding effect of silence. Now, before I go into it, I'm going to share a little bit of my own experience on this journey. So my own experience is 10 years ago, almost 11 years ago now, I began meditating. I began meditating because my mind was so frantic and so busy that truly it was impacting me on a physical level. My health and well-being suffered. I was into hospital multiple times, once with pneumonia, another 2 or 3 times with various different viruses and infections on a physical level. Now, at the time, I was working hard and I was partying harder. I was in London and I began meditating simply to try and ease the stress, the overwhelm, the anxiety that I was feeling. So that was about 11 years ago, just over 10 to 11 years ago. And when I began meditating, what I suddenly realized very quickly, I began meditating with Deepak Chopra, I began realizing that my ability to be present could last no longer than about a quarter of a second. I mean, seriously, I began meditating, listening to guided meditations by Deepak Chopra, and within under a second, my mind was elsewhere. So meditation found me, and when I first started, I thought, this is not for me. I thought, there's no way that my mind can be silent in the way that this man, Deepak Chopra, who was incredible, was describing. And so I would sit in a 20-minute meditation, I would hear the first word, and then I would be gone in my mind, worrying about work, worrying about life, worrying about finances, worrying about anything and everything where my mind would take me. And like I said, at the time I was, living a very kind of manic life, partying, working, with no rest and certainly no silence in between. So, meditation, if you looked at my life 10 years ago, you would have thought that I was the least likely person ever to meditate, right? But what I found is that over time, and this is now almost 11 years later, over time, the compounding effect of silence is the greatest return on investment you can ever make. Okay, the compounding effect of silence is the greatest return on investment you can ever make. And what I mean by that is that as I listened to Deepak Chopra all those years ago, over a period of about 6 to 18 months, I began experiencing presentness for the first time. What I mean by that is that my mind no longer wandered to the fearful future or the regretful past. My mind was able to listen to Deepak for more than a second. And then I found I could listen to him for a minute. And then I found I was listening to the full meditation. And then I was finding that I was accessing just a little bit of that space beyond thought. As he would describe it, the field of pure potentiality. I was finding myself touching that for a fleeting moment in those meditations. And that's when my world began to change. That's when I began to see things for how they really are, or simply how they really appeared to me, what felt true to me. And the realization that I was not my thoughts was the breakthrough moment. Because for years I'd been imprisoned by my thoughts. I'd been held hostage, governed by my thoughts. Often creating scenarios in my head that drove so much fear into my body that on a physical level, my body had disease. It showed up. And like I mentioned, I ended up in hospital several times. And I began recognizing the relationship between the mind and body and how that connection is so obvious when you begin to focus and bring your awareness to your mind and the thoughts that you think. And then being able to realize that you're not your thoughts, but you are that awareness behind your thoughts. You're the awareness beyond your thoughts. So, this was my story. And when I first began this journey 11 years ago, if you told me I could sit in silence for hours on end, I would have said you were mad, right? I would have said there's no way that I can sit in silence or go on a silent retreat for days at a time and be comfortable in that space. So the compounding effect of silence is something that I encourage everyone to invest in. And it's just like finances, right? You begin investing in finances, and over time the compounding effect of what you invest in begins to add up. But at first, if you don't only invest in a small amount, you're not going to see your return for a while. So you've got to be patient on this journey. This journey that I'm talking about is a lifelong quest. A lifelong quest, a never-ending journey to connect and go back within yourself to a space that I call infinite awareness, or the true self, or the real essence of who you are. So the investment, if you start today, it's going to compound quicker. And this is my encouragement to you today, is to begin giving yourself space and time each day to go into that silence. Begin investing in the silence. And I promise you the return on investment in the next 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 40 years is going to be the greatest investment you ever make, because you're going to connect to the truth of your nature more readily and more easily.